Well, it's been a while. I've been at school at the U, and he's been doing his thing.
Yeah, but,
And so today we're going to talk about halfway through the season and their best case scenario for the top 25. So I'm doing the odds, he's doing the evens. So for Georgia, their best case scenario is obviously being the one seed going into the playoffs. But like the way that it would really have to happen, they're playing Florida's no scrouch. Like they were ranked at one point, and then they're playing three straight ranked teams. Well, I don't know if they're going to be ranked at the time, but they will. And then they have to either play a Alabama or probably Alabama or LSU probably in the
or potentially Old Miss if
well, they're
LSU.
already playing Ole Miss anyway.
Oh,
They're
true,
playing what?
true.
So now Zach will talk about one. He's going to talk about the big house.
So the Michigan Wolverines, they haven't really played anybody exciting that would exude confidence, but they haven't had any close games. They've taken care of all their opponents. For them to make the playoffs, I'd say they they need to either win out, lose a conference championship game, or win against Penn State, lose to Ohio State, and Ohio State wins the conference championship. But that would also include probably some self cannibalization from the Pac-12 and a little bit of chaos in the Big 12 as well.
So,
Uh,
yeah, I honestly think Michigan will whoop the floor with Ohio State. Hey, but I'm going to talk about Ohio State now. Well,
in my
Ohio State really hasn't played that good. They got outperformed by Notre Dame. They got extremely lucky at the end of that game to win. You like they needed it Notre Dame to have 10 people on the field instead of 11 to score at the with like 1 second left, I think it was. Yeah, they needed if there was 11 people there, they would have been stopped easily. And the Penn State game was one of the worst games I've ever watched in my life on both sides. They were Penn State and Ohio State both did not play great. Ohio State's playing Wisconsin and this week, or is that no, wait. Yeah, this week. And I'm not again, Ohio State, they have been shaky all year. So Wisconsin was ranked at one point. Like Wisconsin's no scrouch. They could win the West. So I wouldn't be completely surprised if they won this game, Wisconsin, but I would at the same time. Then they're playing
I
Rutgers.
don't
Rutgers,
think they have a chance.
what?
I don't think Wisconsin has a chance this weekend.
Rutgers have been interesting. Michigan State
Well,
has been terrible.
Florida State has looked really good, even though they have that injury to Johnny Wilson right now.
I didn't
But
finish my thing.
oh,
And
you weren't?
I was gonna talk about the Ohio State Michigan game really quickly.
So
I
my bad.
think I think Michigan's gonna destroy Ohio State. Because Michigan actually has something called consistency, something Ohio State has not had all year. Okay. Now you can go to Florida State.
For number four, Florida State, they've already had their two toughest tests so far. Their opening game, the Camping World kicked off against the LSU Tigers, and on Saturday they beat the Duke Blue Devils. Their hardest remaining opponent is the Florida Gators or the Miami Hurricanes. Uh, they have a very easy schedule, especially with the UNC loss to Virginia. I don't think any team really poses a threat to them in the ACC to knock them out. I feel that Jordan Travis will continue to swing the rock, and he will lead them to the college football playoff.
I agree. So for Washington, Washington in like was playing good all year until they played the Sun Devils, which really concerns me about them. And like because Washington, no, Arizona State have a terrible defense. So I don't know, like they're gonna probably whoop the floor with Stanford this week. And
Yeah,
you and same thing with USC. USC has a bottom five defense in the nation, I believe. And any besides sacking the quarterback, that's all they do good is sacking the quarterback. Everything else on defense. Watch that Utah game. And they have no discipline on defense, USC. But back to Washington. Washington's too hard. They're playing back to back weeks against two tough defenses, the Pac-12 in Utah and Oregon State. Like Utah has been doing good recently. He, well, we also played two terrible defenses, but yeah. And then they're playing Oregon State, who Oregon State, the only reason they lost, the only loss they have was to Washington State. And they almost blew the game to Utah. And then they're playing Washington State, who did beat Oregon State. So yeah, get to talk
the
about
Oklahoma.
Baker.
Oh, were you done?
No, I was down. Washington, I think, is making the college football playoffs.
Do you think they have any hiccups along the way?
I think they'll lose to Utah, then get their revenge to Utah.
Uh, their conference championship game.
Yeah. Now you're on to Oklahoma.
Number six, the Oklahoma Sooners. And they've had their tough regular season test so far already. Uh, Going on the road to Austin, Texas, and playing the Longhorns. Going in, scrapping away a win at the very end. Dylan Gabriel is one of the best quarterbacks in the NCAA right now. I feel that they will probably win out the rest of the regular season, and they will have a rematch against Texas. If all goes well, I'd say they have a very good chance of making the playoffs if they win their conference championship game after winning out. It would also just depend on other circumstances throughout the league of college football. But they're in very good shape right now as we speak in terms of completing the goal of making the college football playoff. And Will Venables, I believe that's his name, second season after Lincoln Riley went to USC. Then go on to number seven,
Number
Texas.
number seven, Texas. We don't know if Quinn Ewers is healthy because he got injured. It might be Arch Manning out there.
Did he play last week?
When I let me see, because I know Quinn Ewers got hurt last week.
No, it was Malik Murphy and Ryan Sanborn who had
So yeah, Murphy will probably start or start. Well, they're playing BYU this week, so I don't want to.
EVW.
I don't want to say anything bad about BYU because one of my better friends works for BYU, but me and this guy both know BYU sucks.
What he does,
What?
really, is brag.
And they're practically playing no one. They the only way they'll make the college football playoffs is if they get their revenge on Oklahoma and the teams above them lose.
True, because if Georgia, either Michigan or Ohio State went out,
Because the
uh,
Texas Oklahoma game was only a 4 point game. They would have to win by more than four, I would say.
but they did also beat Alabama earlier in the year.
Fair. They did beat Alabama. Oregon.
Number 8, Oregon.
Big game this
Oregon,
week.
yes, the game of the week this week in Salt Lake City will be the Oregon Ducks at the Utah Utes. Both teams' proverbial seasons and what they want to accomplish hang on the line this week. This one will be close. Uh, I think Utah will be able to win. Uh, they'll have the environment of Rice Eccles and just the confidence after coming off of that win last week at USC. I think they will come home. Uh, it'll be a close game. Oregon, I think, does have a chance. They can scrape out a win, or even win convincingly, depending on how well Utah executes. But other
Yeah,
than that, the only other we do also play USC and Oregon State, but
their best
they
chance is playing
but
Washington again.
yes, they would want to play Washington again in the uh, conference championship game and win out. That would be their route to the playoff.
Alabama. So Alabama this year have been interesting. Like one week they decide to blow out a team, and the next week either or they either they play close to like Texas A&M. They obviously lost to Texas, but this is a big test for them. They're playing LSU. Oh, but I think Alabama, the best chance for Alabama is obviously they need Texas to lose again, and then beating this team up here, beating Georgia to make so playing Chattanooga, Kentucky. The surprisingly, the one I'm actually think is going to be a close game is Alabama Auburn because rivalry games, no matter who they are close. Unless Michigan State, those are always tend to be blown out.
Or Georgia Tech.
Yeah. Now you're on to Penn State.
And then the Penn State Nittany Lions. They had their first real test this past weekend. Their defense was pretty good, except for coverage against Marvin Harrison, Maserati Mark. Uh, they still have a chance to make the playoffs, but they do on November 11th. They do play Michigan, but that will be at home to them at Beaver Stadium. If they are able to win that game, depending on how the tiebreakers and everything work out, they would be hoping that Michigan would beat Ohio State, so that hopefully they will, due to whatever tiebreakers are used, would go to the conference championship game and most likely make the playoffs.
Oregon State. Okay. For Oregon State, first off, they obviously would want to to play Washington in the Pac-12 championship to get their revenge. They would need to
Yeah,
play Washington State,
which sure
but
might happen.
which is definitely not happening. But again, they could beat Washington twice, or Oregon twice, or potentially Utah twice. Like they need to win out. And honestly, if they win out, they are playing. They beat at the time the number 10 overall ranked team in Utah, and they're going to play,
And they did beat UCLA.
and they beat
14.
UCLA. They're most of their hard games they played at home, which is not very helpful towards chances.
And against Washington and then Oregon.
But they're playing Oregon on the road, though.
College that any team has in college football this season.
Yes. So now on to Ole Miss.
The Ole Miss Rebels, the Ole Miss Rebels, the only loss so far was Alabama. They did beat Tulane convincingly in New Orleans. If Ole Miss is able to scrap away a win at Georgia, uh, based on the rest of their opponents, they should win out. But they would hope that Alabama does lose to LSU and that tiebreakers work in their favor so that they would have most likely a rematch with the Georgia Bulldogs, in which they would need to win and they would be able to make the playoffs.
Yeah. So the Utah Utes, well, like I've been keep saying, what they really need is they need to win out, obviously, and face Oregon State in the championship, which is possible.
Do you think if they just win out and they win the conference championship, if it's against, like, say, if it's just like a rematch against Oregon or Washington, do you think that that would be a strong enough resume considering all the ranked opponents that they played?
Yeah, like
Uh,
at the time we played well at the time. I believe ranked 20 UCLA beat them. Ranked 18 USC. We lost to ranked 22 Oregon State. A we beat Florida, but we beat Baylor in it barely
Home stadium.
at Beaver Stadium. And what
Playing.
the worst game of the year so far, Utah versus UCLA. There was a grand total of 21 points, and only 14 of them were on offense. The Utah started with a pick six on the first play of the game. And
Very
again,
nice.
this weekend we're playing Oregon at Rice Eccles, right behind me, and in 2 weeks we're playing Washington. So yeah, and I'm not going to even talk about Colorado. They're playing for clicks.
Ooh.
So now on to
The
Notre
Notre
Dame.
Dame,
No chance.
they're just playing for the best New Year's Six Bowl that they can at this point, having had two losses. A very surprising loss at Louisville is kind of what sealed their fate on the season. Uh, I guess anything could happen, but with there only being four teams and the quality of the teams up above and the wins that they'll be able to have, will reign supreme over the resume that the Notre Dame Fighting Irish will have.
Yeah. LSU. They have no chance.
I think they do have a chance,
They have two losses too.
but they would have played. Their loss would have been the Florida State, Ole Miss. They beat Missouri. They would have beaten Alabama, and then they would have probably beaten Georgia
But
in
the problem
the.
with that is there'll still probably be teams up here. There's still
Well,
teams up,
you know how much they love the SEC. You
in my
can't
opinion.
deny of them.
In, in my opinion, they have no chance. Like, they have no chance. Yes, they were ranked 5 going into the SEC championship game for some odd reason last year. That was stupid.
The Missouri Tigers, uh, they need to beat Georgia when they play them next Saturday. If they
They
beat
lost to
Georgia,
LSU. They beat
yeah, but
LSU.
no,
Not
they
their
lost
only
out.
loss.
Yeah, but they beat Kentucky. They beat Kansas State. If they went out, they would have also beaten Georgia in Athens. And then they would have also beaten the Volunteers of Tennessee and the Gators of Florida. Well, if they went out, they will for sure be in. I just don't see it. I think they'll probably lose by at least 20 against Georgia next week. Uh, but they could maybe play a New Year's Six bowl if they win the rest of their games. But it is certainly a season that I think they didn't expect, and they definitely will accomplish whatever goal that they set out to realistically accomplish this season.
Yep. North Carolina, no chance. They lost to Virginia.
Yeah, that was embarrassing.
They lost to Virginia. I don't care that they only have one loss right now. They lost to Virginia, a one-win team.
The only way that they make it is they went out and they whooped
And some
Florida.
teams up here embarrass themselves.
That too. The Louisville Cardinals. Yeah, they just lost to Pitt. They still have a chance having beaten Notre Dame. Uh, and they still do play Duke. Uh, they play Miami and Kentucky. But if they went out and they beat Florida State, they have a chance to make it in.
No offense to Air Force. Even if they win out, I can't see them making it. They 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 played no ranked teams. Like I'd put a one loss team over Air Force. What Air Force is doing is incredible, but still they're not playing anyone. Now on to Duke.
Duke, they they
No
needed
chance.
to win last Saturday against Florida State.
They very
Uh,
well should have.
yeah, had they had done that, they would probably, I would say they probably would have beaten Louisville next week, and they would have been strong enough, at least in my eyes, if they had beaten Florida State to win out. And they would just have to take care of business again against Florida State. But that did not happen. But they could still, I believe that they could still win their conference and make a New Year's Six bowl.
For Tennessee, no chance. Like, I'm sorry for saying that, but they have two losses right here. And what they really needed was to beat Alabama in Alabama.
Yeah,
Enough said.
it is possible, but I'd say they have
They-
like
yeah, they're
them.
playing. they're playing Missouri and Georgia, but I don't.
But they would somehow, I'd say they'd probably still need to win their conference, and Georgia's not getting two losses.
Yeah, that's the only. So I don't see it whatsoever.
Yes.
Tulane.
Tulane probably would not have happened, but they would have needed to beat Ole Miss the second week of the season. They are in, I'd say, adequate position to make a run to be the Group of Five representative for the New Year's Six Bowl. Um, they did beat USC last year, and they did return a decent amount of players. But that one loss against Ole Miss, it might look better depending on how they do the rest of the season and if they beat Georgia. But as of right now, I think there's pretty much no way just because of Group of Five. Um, but they do have decent bit to play for, and they could play in a New Year's Bowl again this year.
UCLA, no chance. Their two losses happened to Pac-12 teams. And yes, the Pac-12 loves beating on themselves, but problem with that is like there is it's so far away for them to make the Pac-12 championship that it probably won't happen.
And they had one of the easier schedules in the Pac-12.
Yes, they had their opportunity in Salt Lake. They
And
just
also in Corvallis, Oregon as well.
they just
What? I want to see the good.
for again UCLA they had their chances in Salt Lake and at Oregon State. Now on to USC.
The USC Trojans.
Caleb Williams should
They,
just shut his season down.
no, they should keep him playing because then they'll just get more money because more people will show up to games. And, all that. They should play him.
No,
Uh, yeah,
if I was Caleb Williams, I would say I'm injured, even though you're not.
yeah. Like I guess theoretically they still have a chance. Like if they beat Washington, Oregon, and UCLA, but there's just too much that would have to happen. That would have to go right for that to happen. Uh,
Agreed.
we got through second one last week against Utah at home, but I and
Which which
through that game.
it should not even went down to the last seconds. They got bailed with a throw to the defender's hands.
Are you talking about Utah?
No. Oh, USC should have lost. Like it should not have taken to the very last second to lose.
Yeah.
They got bailed out by Bryson Barnes deciding to throw it to a defender.
Oh.
James Madison. I don't care that they're 7-0. They don't have a chance. They
They're also not bowl eligible, and they won't even, unless the conference changes the rules, they won't even be in the conference championship game due to the fact that it's their second year in the FBS from the FCS.
oh, so they can't even be in a bowl game.
Unless well, they could probably like be invited to one, because like each bowl game is like an independent thing, and they can invite who they want. And then say if they went out and other things happen with like say Tulane and Air Force, the college football playoff committee, say if they have them ranked, I guess by rule they would hopefully I'd hope for them if they are the best group of five team that the college football playoff committee and everybody that would make those New Year's Six games would be like, there you go, you're playing in a New Year's Six game.
Yep.
Because I think the
Well,
rule is kind of stupid. If you're
So those,
playing and you win, you should be able to go as far as your team is capable of on the field. It shouldn't be held back by rules if they didn't shoot.
well, hopefully they don't call a fake fair catch, run it for a touchdown, and then call it a fair catch.
Oh yeah, Iowa.
Well,
That was funny.
that was a good. It's been a good video. Peace.